The people, when they hear the word prenup, immediately is like, oh, here we go.
But I wonder where we get the concept. Where do y'all think that came from, that a prenuptial agreement is like the death knell?
I grew up at a time where this was
taboo.
Yeah. What? You don't talk about this stuff here, right?
Now you having a podcast about it, Henry.
There you go. So they probably got backslid.
When you got married, it may not have been such a big consideration, but now, 30 years later, 20-something years later, the landscape has shifted.
Changed.
You don't get a prenup. The law outlines how your assets and liabilities will be divided in your divorce or in your death.
Janet Jackson marries a Qatari businessman. They have a prenuptial agreement. He left with $200 million of this man's dollars.
Here, man.
That is my
What is your point?
She walked away with $200 million
Of her money.
Did she work for it?
Yeah, she had the baby.
See, there we go.
Bottom line, folks, if you're broke, you ain't got nothing. You don't need no prenup.
I mean, what he says.
Prenup. We need a prenup.
Everybody, this is Henry Fernandez, and welcome to the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that couples are confronted with before they say I do. Here's the topic. Should I get a prenup? Yay or nay? So let us know in the comments where you stand on this topic. Now, joining me today, I have my two co-hosts, Carlene Wright and Christopher Mattox. And then we have a very special guest, attorney Yanique Otto. She is a family law and estate planning attorney. She also holds a master's degree in clinical psychology with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy. We need a lot of that today. Now, she is the author of the ebook, Co-Parenting on Purpose 101. Are you ready for this? How to not screw up your kids during divorce. Welcome to the podcast, Attorney Otto.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here with all of you today.
What a title of that book. Let's start right there.
Yes.
How not to screw up your kids during divorce. So I guess a lot of people do that, right?
Yeah, you know, one of the things we find is when parents are going through divorce, sometimes they focus more on what they want, right? Somebody's been hurt, somebody has been cheated on, lied to, left, abandoned, and they're so intent on getting back at the other person,
Right.
that they fight so hard that they don't realize that they're hurting the children in the process, and they end up not just breaking the marriage apart,
Right.
but breaking that child or those children sometimes in the process. So the book and the course that corresponds with it is designed to help people learn communication techniques to get through divorce while, you know, you can get out your anger, but still protect your child during the process.
Right.
Yeah.
And as an attorney, you know, and based on your area of discipline, that you deal with clinical psychology with an emphasis on marriage and family. I think you're the perfect person to join us in this discussion of prenup.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Thank
And
you.
especially when we're talking to believers,
Yes.
people of faith, you know, it's the dirty word, prenup. So we're going to dive into the question. And I'm so glad, you know, Chris is with me and Carlene is with me and so forth. So we're going to figure out, you know, what to do. First question, Attorney Otto. What's the legal definition of prenuptial agreement? Because a lot of people out there, they hear it, but they really don't know what it means.
Okay, so the basic definition is a prenuptial agreement is a written document which outlines the desire of a husband and a wife for how they want certain things to go financially, how they want their assets and their liabilities to be divided when the marriage ends. And I say when the marriage ends because the marriage will end.
Right.
Sometimes when we think about prenups, we're thinking it's just about divorce.
Right.
But a prenuptial actually covers what happens when, if, God forbid, we get a divorce or when one party dies.
Oh, I didn't know that prenup.
I knew that was coming.
See, we're learning something
Yes.
new. I thought it's only for living people.
No.
So this is gonna be easy for me then today. I mean, I thought I was gonna
I'd
have
make
to
it
use.
Why are people scared? Why are people scared of a
I
prenup?
thought I was gonna have to use 32 scriptures to
Yes.
No,
to kind
sir.
of prove this. So okay.
Yeah.
Even in that definition of it, when you think of a prenup, you usually think of, I'm trying to protect what's mine
Right.
from you. But when you break it down like that, all we're really doing is planning for how are we going to split things up
Yes.
afterwards. Not necessarily, I don't want you to have none.
Yes.
But how do we break it down?
Yes.
And when
Right,
things
right.
come to an end?
I like that, and I'll say you talked about, you feel like a prenup, or you felt like a prenup was, well, how can I protect myself? But I often think of a prenup as, how can I protect my partner? Because remember, a prenup is not a unilateral agreement. It's not, I wrote something up and you're going to sign it. It's, we sat down, it should be, we sat down lovingly and we thought about our situations. We thought about who we love and who we want to protect and who we want to provide for when we pass away, or God forbid the worst, we get a divorce. And between us both, we reduce that to writing in a manner that satisfies both of us.
Boy, this
That's
is good.
never talked about. Never.
Never,
That-
ever,
the death
ever.
part
Is
of
this
it.
going to be a short one, guys?
I was going to say, in a minute, we can wrap it up. right?
See, we need people like her
Yes.
to be talking to
Clarity.
these couples or these singles
Absolutely.
because you put a whole different spin on this conversation.
In like
because-
3 minutes.
Yeah, because a lot of people when they hear the word prenup, immediately is like, oh, here we go. Especially for Christians,
Right.
why we got to do that?
Right.
You don't trust me.
Right.
But it goes beyond.
So far
the
beyond.
live-in.
Yes.
Just beyond the marriage. If it ends up in a divorce, it's more protection for both parties.
Absolutely.
And who can fight that?
And I think that's the other important part is that it's not a unilateral agreement.
Agreement. Yes.
It's not I'm just forcing something on you.
No.
But when you describe it that way, where we sit down and together we say, this is what we agree should happen should this thing come to an end. However, that changes the whole. But I wonder where we get the concept. Where do y'all think that came from, that a prenuptial agreement is like the death knell? Like it's like, yo, you out to get me. Or you
Right.
out to get mine. Where does that idea come from?
I think it's what we see not only just on TV, but if you have anyone in your family, right, that's had a divorce and it's like, okay, they took everything from me, even though there probably was the prenup, probably didn't sit down and go over it like you mentioned, but now it's like they're seeing what happened. So
Right.
it's that, the death of me to get a
Right.
prenup.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Never have I ever thought about that part,
Right.
protecting the
I
person
think
who
it's a lack of knowledge too,
Yeah.
because based on what you just said, some folks haven't even lost anything. They ain't got nothing to lose. It's just stuff we've been
Yes.
hearing,
Yes.
and because we have no knowledge. Because
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's the first time, and I'm
Right.
glad it's an attorney telling me that.
Right.
If not, I wouldn't believe it. Right. Because I've never heard it done that way.
Yes.
It's always to protect in case you get a divorce.
In case.
So that's that negative connotation
Right.
to the whole
Yes.
conversation. And why are we going to consider divorce? But it brings balance, because what you're telling me, it is to protect both parties.
That it should be to protect both parties.
Right.
You have those instances where you have one party who is out to get the other, and
Right.
they're going to manipulate them and maybe try to get them to sign something they don't understand, but when done the right way,
Right.
and two people who genuinely love each other and they're entering into a marriage based on love and mutual commitment to each other, and they both want to not just, they may want to protect themselves as well, but it's protecting each other in the process. And
Right.
when it's done that way, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Go ahead, Carly.
So question here, because so many things. So you mentioned if you don't have anything, really, you don't need a prenup. At what point should you really be looking at, or who should be considering a prenup? Just because I'm getting married, should I get a prenup, or should I be looking into getting a prenup just because I'm getting married?
So that's a great question. I would say that in my practice, most of the people who come to me for a prenuptial agreement, they do have something to protect, one party or the other. So
Right.
in many cases, you have an individual who may have amassed a small fortune before they met their partner. And going into the marriage, they want to account for, not necessarily, protect or hide or this is mine, but they want to know. They want to have an open discussion with their partner to say, what is your expectation? If we got married and again, God forbid, we got divorced or ultimately when one of us passes away, what is your expectation with what happens with the things I acquired previously? And it's particularly salient when there are children involved. When one or both parties have children from a prior relationship or marriage, then you really have to think about how are we.
There's levels to this thing.
Right.
Super level.
Bottom
Levels
line,
up on
folks,
levels.
if you're broke, you ain't got nothing. You don't need no prenup.
What he says.
Prenup. We need a prenup. If you broke,
need a
you need a
prenup.
prenup.
We need to pray up.
Hold on.
I just want to make it clear. That's what it sounds like to me.
But if I got my baseball cards, my football cards,
And listen,
my comic
You
book,
need a box to put them in.
Thank you.
My
That's what
hats.
you need, Colin. A box.
my tennis
A
shoes.
shoe
you could
box.
just get a box and write prenup on it.
Yes,
You don't need no lawyer for that.
So what are the pros and cons to prenups?
I would say one of the pros is that both parties get a chance to think this through openly and honestly with each other in peacetime.
In peacetime.
In peacetime.
Peacetime. How long does that peacetime?
I like that.
You don't want to be talking about what happens, between us financially when a divorce has already been contemplated, when the trust has already been breached, or when someone's on their deathbed
there's
and they're
venom
dying and now
involved.
you're trying to figure out, well, what do you want
Now
me
I
to
know
do
who
with
you
this?
really are.
So it allows the couple to have this open, honest, transparent discussion in a time of peace when you both love each other and are desiring the best for each other. You can set up protections for yourself and your partner before there is a war. And hopefully there never will be a war.
Right.
That makes me think of
War.
that movie. I don't know if y'all remember that movie, The War of the Roses, where the couple is getting divorced, but they remain in the house because they're fighting over the house. And the whole movie is this husband and wife who used to love each other, who are now at each other's throats because the first one to leave the house has to give the house up or whatever. But when you said in peacetime, once again, that changes
Peacetime.
It's
in peacetime because, like you said too, I still love you. girl.
Right.
I feel you.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah.
have a nice conversation because
Yes.
once it gets past that,
Right.
then you have venom involved. Now you have beef, and that's when you can start to be like, no, it's mine.
But here's and I want to dive into something here. It's probably going to be very controversial for the viewers. I mean, we understand that person who's not of faith,
yeah.
do whatever you want to do because your mind is not renewed.
Absolutely.
And you do it. But for a believer, should we even dare consider a Christian? I'm sweetly saved. I love her. She loves me. Why should I even be thinking, can I just trust God and walk in faith? Why am I thinking of a prenup? That sounds kind of ungodly.
Well, Bishop, is getting health insurance also ungodly?
Okay.
Wham.
Bam.
Wham.
Well, now.
Bam.
Because-
Okay.
Return of serve.
Right?
Okay, that's it. I didn't even hit it back. I couldn't.
The Word of God tells us that healing is the children's bread, right?
Right.
So as a believer, we should trust God that if we ever got sick, He would just take care of it. And yet,
We
We
get
take
health
out insurance.
we get health insurance
Wow.
because we know that it is possible for us to get sick and that God may choose to show up and heal, but He may not because He's God, right?
Right.
All things are in His discretion. And so we live our lives, I believe in living based on wisdom, making wise
That's the key.
decisions.
Wisdom.
And so personally, I believe that a Christian should get a prenuptial agreement if it is right for your situation.
Right,
I don't
right.
believe that everybody needs a prenuptial or everybody should get a prenuptial, but I don't believe the decision should be made based on whether you're a Christian or not.
Right.
Let me ask you a question, if I can jump in real quick. I hear, so far we've been kind of talking about it like if I'm coming to the marriage with something. Do prenuptial agreements also fit if we say, let's at the beginning decide how we want to split up what we acquire together?
Yes. I love your thought process, and that's so brilliant because literally we joked about putting your baseball cards in a box.
But those are my baseball cards.
But don't sleep on those baseball cards,
My
right?
granddaddy gave me them cards.
And listen, that's an excellent point. Your granddaddy gave you those cards, and you may genuinely. It's not about the value of the assets, whether you have multiple $1 million properties or $20 baseball card. I don't know. I'm just whatever they're worth.
Right.
The sentimental value may be enough for you to want to protect those. So you may, but to your question about can you have a prenuptial agreement, or would it be wise to have a prenuptial agreement, or does a prenuptial agreement account for what happens after the fact? So let's take a scenario where you have two young or whatever age individuals, and they're both coming with basically nothing. They have a basic job, making a moderate income. They haven't acquired any real estate assets and so on. They could still choose to say, let's put down in writing how we want things to go when we do come into some assets or some money. And they could choose, they may say, listen, when we get married, because remember, it's a prenup, so you're having this discussion before the marriage. So the couple could say to each other, when we get married, we'll both come in with like nothing in the pot. So when we start filling this pot, when our marriage ends, and when, again, the marriage ends, death or divorce, we want things to split equally. You take half the pot, I take half the pot. They could choose something else. Even though they both came with nothing, the husband could say, you know what, if anything were to happen to me, I want you to get this percentage of my estate, and then I'm going to leave this percentage for my mother or my children.
Right.
But it's just completely up to them to decide.
So it's whatever you want to have.
It is.
There's no.
Literally whatever you want.
All of that sounds good, but what I cannot get rid of out of my head is by hearing you talk, right? It sounds simple. But I'm quite sure people out there, they're watching and they're like, this is crazy. This is ungodly. This ain't right. Why am if I love the person, why are we even discussing half goes to the other and all that kind of a stuff? Because again, I grew up at a time where this was
taboo.
Yeah.
what?
It's sinful.
You don't talk about this stuff here, right?
Now you having a podcast about it, Henry.
There you go. So they probably got backslid.
Yeah, right. You're promoting
so
it.
help bring balance here now, because my generation 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Honestly, there wasn't really any need
Right.
for no prenup. For me, I didn't consider no prenup with Kara because I didn't got nothing. She was broke just as me.
We've heard the story.
So
You did have that one pair of shoes with the hole in
the
it.
bottom, so you could have put that in a box.
I loaned you the shoebox.
Yes.
So I didn't have nothing. So,
Right.
we didn't think about all that stuff back then. But people have educated themselves, acquired more wealth and so forth. So is it that it's a different time now?
I think
Or what?
the season is shifting.
Yeah.
I think that in particular, when you got married, Bishop, Henry, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's hard for me to
They're
call.
struggling. They're struggling.
They told me to call
They're
him
struggling
Henry,
calling me
but-
I
Henry.
almost slipped twice.
Okay, bring it back. Bring it back. But when you got married, it may not have been such a big consideration. But now, 30 years later, 20-something years later, the landscape has shifted.
Change.
As you know, divorce rate has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
We got some numbers.
Right. And with divorce rates skyrocketing, so has remarriage rates. And so a large percentage of people who are getting married today are not getting married for the first time. And considerations, therefore, are different.
Facts.
Unique. What happens to faith? I mean, if I got $10 million in my account,
Yes.
I'm single.
Okay.
What happened to faith? What happened to just trusting? What if God says, this woman is my wife?
Right.
Why do I need you to bring prenup into it? Just have faith.
Faith that your marriage will not end because your marriage will end.
Back to the definition,
I'm
right?
not even touching that ball.
So it's either going to end in divorce.
That ain't fair, man.
or
You
death.
throwing balls over here, man. That ain't fair, man.
You just have to know
I'm
what
the
you're...
host of the show. I'm supposed to be throwing the shots, man. Don't be doing me like that.
All right. I'm sorry, Henry.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
either
Go
way.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel that it's important to keep in mind. I think we started out maybe removing a little bit of the stigma
Right,
associated with prenuptial agreements. This is not about a lack of faith. This is not about planning because I'm going to or want to get a divorce. This is literally just two parties sitting down, discussing with each other, hey, babe, how would you like this to go? If I died before you, what would you want me to do with the things that you brought to the marriage?
How do you even get to that conversation? One, because
Over noodles? I mean,
because a lot of people, I mean, even based on the stats that we have here,
Right.
quite alarming. I'll share some of them here. And this is according to the Harris poll. 50% of U.S. adults said that they at least somewhat supported the use of prenups, although only 1 in 5 married couples have actually done a prenup
I
agreement.
think that speaks to your point because you need a gang of noodles.
And all right, the
to have that
conversation is
conversation,
hard.
'cause
Yeah.
People are not ready for it.
They're not ready. 50% of people say, I understand. I think I
I would do
understand
it.
what a prenup is.
But in
only
reality, won't do it.
They don't do it.
20% of them are like, I'll go through with it. And them other 30 are like, I'm not really.
I'm not gonna not
I
have a
think
spouse.
a part of what accounts for that is the difficulty of the conversation that has to be had to even get to the prenup. So if I'm understanding your stats correctly, 50% think it's okay and they understand the reason for it. They would probably get one, but only 1 in 5. So that's only 20% actually go through with it. I believe maybe the difference is made up of people who are like, man, I want to get a prenup, but how's she going to feel about me?
Exactly.
If I tell her I'm not going to marry you unless we do this, or how's he going to feel about me if I say, listen, I got some stuff and I want to protect it. Sometimes people don't even want to reveal what they have. Maybe that's the issue. Because discussing the prenup necessarily
everything on the
means
table,
let's
right?
put it on the table so we can talk about what will happen.
So let me ask you then, if you had a client to come to you and say, look, I'm thinking of getting married, right? Male or female, I'm thinking about getting married. But, how do I bring up this prenup conversation? What would be your advice to them?
Over noodles. If she likes noodles.
Right.
I think that a couple that is at the point of contemplating marriage really just has to be at a place where they can discuss finances and financial situations very freely and openly.
Okay.
It is not an easy conversation.
It's not.
But it must be had.
But it must be had.
So okay, all right. But what if now I come back and I say, I followed your advice, but she's not taking it well. I've got $2 million in the bank of my own money. Has nothing to do with her.
Right.
But she's telling me why we need a prenup. When I love you, you love me. That's insulting to me. You don't trust me. What advice would you
I think
give?
that's where that 30%, that difference goes, is that fear of when I bring this up.
What's gonna happen?
If they say
Exactly.
no, now I feel like I'm putting you in the spot. It's an ultimatum.
Exactly.
Do I
That's
move
the
forward or
point.
not? What do I do?
Yeah.
But I think people really forget the prenup too is not for the person that you're marrying. It's for the person that you're going to divorce.
Oh, Lord.
Because
You hear it, right?
Oh, Lord.
it is not for
right.
the person that you're marrying.
Yeah.
And those
Let's
are
bring
two
it in.
different people.
Two different,
Oh,
three different,
Jesus.
4 different, 5 different people.
Call on
The
Jesus.
person who you marry is not who you divorce.
Call on Jesus.
And so
Call him up.
This is
Call
the second
him up.
time you brought this up in this
we
conversation.
gotta.
Call him up.
That's the
Okay.
reality of
Yeah,
it. You know.
But we did talk about that back.
It's not the person you're marrying.
Yes,
It's the
people
person-
change. People change.
That's a reality.
That is a reality.
That is a reality.
And so even in that conversation, people are just like, let me just see what's going to happen.
Right.
They don't have it because they're even scared of what is going to happen. Do I man up or woman up and say, you know what, this is what I want and I'm going to stand up for myself.
I think somebody's watching the podcast and they are in this situation now, right? They probably had the conversation with that person.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone well, but they love the person.
So, and that's the question you asked a little while ago. And I would say this, it has to be something that you both are in agreement with. If one person wants a prenuptial agreement and the other does not, and there is no, I would say at that point, there may be a need for some quiet reflection on both your parts.
Okay.
And also the involvement of some wise spiritual authority, whether that person is formerly a counselor, a
Right.
therapist,
Right.
someone that both of you can look up to for spiritual advice. I think that's a moment to go and seek that out. Now, after going through counseling or seeking out advice, if one party is still saying,
No.
I'm not interested in signing a prenup, and we should it's just faith and love and hope, and I don't want none of that. And the other party is still saying, yeah, but it's important to me. Then we may have a deal breaker if we're just honest. Both parties have to be aligned in that decision.
This reminds me of Drake. I know we on a Christian podcast.
Clean it up.
But Drake has that lyric, you wasn't with me shooting in the gym. And what he's talking about in that lyric is, I built this on my own.
Right.
And so I bring that up because I think if somebody were to say, no, I don't want the prenup, the next inference that your mind makes is that you don't want the prenup because you want
the stuff.
What I earned when I was shooting in the gym by myself, when I was working hard, when I was building myself, developing my game, doing whatever you want, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
You don't want to sign a prenup because you want that.
But I'm married into that, so.
No, you're not married yet, boo.
There you go.
No,
there
but
you
I'm married
go.
into that.
Thank you for
right?
cleaning up that, attorney.
No, you married into that.
No,
what you were
Attorney
doing.
Otto is on her toes.
No,
You hear me?
no.
See, now we done turned down an alley that y'all shouldn't take me down there. Hi there, this is Henry Fernandez, and I just want to take this time to say a big thanks to all of you who watch my podcast. You guys are really awesome. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can stay in the loop for the next episode. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. So let's keep the good vibes going, my friends, and continue our journey of growth and inspiration together. Stay tuned, my real ones.
Let's turn on the headlights down this alley.
Wait a
and get
minute
some
now,
clarity.
Carlene. Wait a minute now. I believe that if whether male or female got whatever, houses, land, $2 million and so forth, they're not married yet.
Correct.
Right. They're
Right.
not.
I believe it is at the discretion of that person who possess all of that to determine, do they want to share it
Correct.
at the beginning?
Right.
Because at the beginning, listen to me, ladies, because you ladies are way advanced than some of these men.
Hey.
You got houses,
We
you
reading
got
stuff.
cars, you got bank accounts.
That's real.
You got all that kind of a
Intellectual
stuff, right? You got businesses and so forth. And I'm going to tell you that it's at your discretion. If you choose to bring Boo in to the conversation
Boo.
and say, I'm going to split this with you. Now, I ain't no attorney, but if I was your counsel, I would tell you, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And I know, the comments are coming in. Oh my God, don't do that. No, in this society, people need to earn your trust. And the question then is there a way that a prenup can be structured that if I got $5 million worth of assets and I'm going to marry someone,
Yes.
I'll say, look, coming into marriage, you ain't getting nothing that I have.
Right.
But if you stay with me 20 years,
Yes.
Do your time.
then I release it to you.
Right. Can you bind them to you by contract?
And if they're going to tell me no, they're not going to consider that. Bye, Felicia.
Yeah. By Felicia.
Well, we were
That's it.
talking. We did a little bit of research.
Yes.
I'm so proud of myself. I did some research
Right.
for
Okay.
our,
All right.
this podcast. Normally, I don't. I'm just on here freestyling. But we have 3 examples from what you're saying, Bishop. Janet Henry. My goodness.
Yeah.
Janet Jackson marries a Qatari businessman. They have a prenuptial agreement. First of all, this is a fantastic prenup. If they stay married for 5 years, she gets $100 million. If they have a child, she gets $200 million. Now, ain't
How
much to
many
complain
children
about.
did she have?
She has 1. Now, the thing is, to Henry's point, they stayed married. I think it was 5 years exactly.
Okay.
She had the baby in year 3,
Okay.
and then she dipped.
Okay.
And she left with $200 million of this man's dollars.
Wait, no,
But-
not the man's dollars.
was
It's
just
her
about-
dollars.
Oh, see, you and Carlene, y'all.
because it was agreed upon.
Because it's agreed
he
upon.
did
told
the
her.
time.
That's my point.
she
That's
met
my
the requirements.
Point. That is my point.
What is your point?
She walked away with $200 million.
Of
As he
her
promised.
money.
Did she work for it?
Yeah,
He
she had the
promised her.
baby.
See, there we go.
That's what he
She did her time. She had the baby.
Wow.
Wait, guys, but listen.
I gotta say, I would feel horrible.
No, but listen.
If she like,
loved
look,
him.
I was with you
Alright.
for 5 years. I had a baby for you. For
But
all of that,
isn't
I
what he
deserve
asked
$200
for?
million.
I'm sure they just fell out
No.
at 5 years.
$200
They
million
fell out at
for a
5
She
baby.
years.
does not deserve $200 million because she had a baby. Let me be clear.
Go ahead.
Right.
I am not saying she
Right.
earned the $200 million.
But because
by-
it wasn't agreed upon.
Thank you, my bishop. I mean, my Henry. This agreement was contemplated by
Yes.
both of them. When?
Agreed.
When? In peacetime.
In peacetime.
So
In
be careful
peacetime.
what
What
you're
you doing
signing.
in peacetime?
That's it.
But I think
Careful
my
what you're signing.
Speaking of that, though, because there's another scenario that's quite relevant right now with Jeannie Mai and Jeezy, right?
Yes.
So I was going to say but they signed a prenup. And this happened just a few days before they got married. Now,
Okay.
imagine a bride getting married. You're worried about this, you're doing that. So she signed it, and now, 2 years later, they're now,
Divorced.
for divorce.
And what's happening?
So she's contesting that prenup.
Okay, she does not want whatever it says to
No.
apply because it's not favorable to her.
Right.
It is not favorable to her, of course. They now have a child. Things have changed. And it was in that little short time. So was she under duress when she signed
and
it?
for full context, she came with assets.
Okay.
He
So did
came
he,
with
yeah.
assets. So it's
Okay.
not a matter of necessarily yeah. It's not the shoe with the hole in it.
Baseball
It's-
cards.
Exactly.
Right.
He has his, and she came now. Granted, she might have a little less or so or whatever, but she didn't come like destitute. You know?
Okay,
Both
so she came with
celebrities.
some
Yeah.
stuff. He came with some stuff, and they signed a prenup that said, like, what's the fight about? I don't have the context.
So the favorable part of it. So whatever, the prenup, of course, he keeps what he has and she keeps what
I believe
and she doesn't want that. She wants some of his stuff.
a little
She
bit.
wa- yeah.
Of course, she wants a
This
little
is
bit
my
more.
point. That is why, viewers are watching. That is why I think for some people, prenup opens the door for divorce. Just the very thought of it is suggesting that you're giving room to an exit. We know now divorce or by death, right? And one may think, why can't we just trust God? I'm going back to that part. Why can't we just trust
I think
God?
it's wisdom, though.
Have faith and just say, okay, like in Janet Jackson's situation, all right? I agree. If somebody deliberately going to use in marriage, I'm not saying with that's what Janet
Right.
did, but if a person goes into marriage to do certain things, to walk away with something, then you're using the marriage covenant selfishly.
As a come up.
Because the purpose for marriage, there's two reasons for marriage. I tell people, a lot of people say marriage is only to glorify God. That's a lie. Because
That too.
I don't need to get married to glorify God.
That is
Right.
correct.
Right. The second reason we get married is to express our love to each other. All right. So I'm just saying, if we could just simply pray like how people did it 30 years ago and hear God. And if God says, that's your wife, that's your husband, why can't we go back to those days and throw this prenup out the window? And then, so if, for example, if I'm a man and I come in with $5 million, she comes in with nothing, because God told me that's her. Why?
Okay.
Why is the
before
prenup
you answer?
necessary?
And then I have
Because I want to give, because I was,
Holly look like she ready. She,
Oh, we're ready.
That finger.
We got something to say.
I got something to say.
I've been thinking about this as we've been talking. Imagine if Adam, the first man, Adam from the ground, imagine if he had a prenup.
But the apples
Because
I was going to say the berries
for paradise,
for paradise.
for
Okay.
paradise,
Okay.
Adam is placed in the garden. He is given domain over it all. He's in perfect commune with God, right? To your point, Henry, God gives him Eve.
Right.
and Eve
then
cost him,
Yeah, she threw him under the bus.
and she cost him everything. But imagine,
Was she a
that's
liability
another
or an
podcast,
asset?
Bishop.
Liability.
but, so to the point of like, can't we just like pray about it and have faith? You can, but that does not inoculate you from the possibility of a snake coming in, whispering in somebody's ear, and now we done lost
Bad
paradise.
venom. That was
Bad
bad
venom.
analogy, Chris. You blew my whole concept out the window.
I've been thinking about
slapped
it.
me in the back of my head.
I've
Why
been
you doing
formulating
that?
it this whole
We
time.
supposed to be
And he's
together
been
against
thinking
them
this whole
too.
time about
My
that.
bad.
Come on,
All right. To the
I got a
court.
scripture.
Can I retract from the court? I'll
Please
retract.
retract.
Stricken. Motion to strike granted.
Go ahead, attorney. You was,
Yeah, so I would say, Bishop, that, I think that you can have faith. You can, if God says to you, this is your wife, thou shalt get married. Fabulous. But does God also not say to you or permit you to talk about and agree on how things will go when your marriage ends? I don't personally see it as something that is, those things are not mutually exclusive. I think you can enter a marriage fully prepared to honor your vows and honor your commitment and walk this thing out till death do us part. But what are we going to do when death occurs, or God forbid? Because we are a fallen world, right?
Absolutely.
We not the Adam, and we're not in the garden, and like this is not it, right? It's not
We
that.
struggling in these
We
streets.
struggling all over the streets.
Right.
So I think that there is room for that.
okay, Carlene.
All you're getting
You
get
were
wisdom.
bubbling. You wanted to say
I had
something.
so much to say. No, I found a scripture for this.
Okay, let's
so
hear. Let's
it
hear the
says,
word. Let's hear the word.
The kingdom of God suffered much violence,
Yes.
and the violence taken
And
by
Eve
force.
said, to God, I don't know what Adam did. I don't know where he at.
I'm kidding.
Go ahead.
But I mean, thinking about everything, because to your first definition of divorce, including death, the prenups, the
Right.
main part that people focus on really is the stuff.
Correct.
Even though that's a part of it, they're kind of like, I want to protect me.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own interest at heart. So for believers, there's consideration just to be wise when it comes to looking at that, I think, because even thinking back, on friends that I know and scenarios I've heard recently, a story, this person actually went to his wife and said, fiance, let's do a prenup. She was like, oh my gosh, really? He was like, yes. They talked themselves out of it. They didn't do it, but she has not forgiven him. And now she's in therapy because she still cannot forgive the thought of him having to want to do a prenup.
Wow.
So
it's
should
like-
it then be like a conversation that's had much sooner? Like if it's going to end up with her in therapy because she
I mean, now
doesn't
they're
agree-
married now for years,
Oh,
but
they-
she's still kind
Oh, I
of holding
see.
on to the fact that he even brought up.
they're married
They're
now?
married.
And
Yeah.
she's
And
in therapy over prenup.
Did she sign it?
Flag on the
They
play.
didn't do it. They talked about it. They didn't do it. But just the fact that he came to her with that, like she's
She
kind
can't
of like,
forgive the thought that he brought the conversation to the table, even
Flag
though
on
he.
the play.
I need therapy with this.
I
one.
need some therapy too.
Yeah, so that's two real
This
people.
is crazy.
I'm just saying how a prenup is
I have
just
a
such
problem
big
with that.
deal for
Yeah.
people.
I just think some people just
Yeah.
make mountains over some little things,
molehills.
which is unnecessary. But what are the alternatives to couples protecting themselves other than prenup? Are there other things? Like, for example, I give you a point. Prior to the show, we were brainstorming, and I was saying, I've heard, I'm not a lawyer, so, you could probably, explain this. So if someone say they have $1 million in an account, they're not married yet, and that is whether it is their kids' money from a prior relationship, whatever. So they're going to get married now. My understanding is that that money can be put in a trust or something like that.
Yeah.
Now that you get married, if you do not want your spouse now to have any access to that, you have to make sure you keep it in a separate account, but you can never commingle the funds. Am I right so far?
Attorney Henry in the house.
Hey,
There you go. I passed the bar. Okay.
all that Law and Order paying
Not the
off.
bar, but a low bar. So I'm right so
You
far.
are right.
So what I'm finding out, though, attorney, is that a lot of people lack the education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of that, they get hurt in the process. So what are some of the things people can do?
All right. So first of all, I do both family and estate planning. And you're right in how you explained how you can put things in a trust to be protected. But what I always tell my estate planning clients, sometimes they'll say, oh, I don't have an estate plan. And I always say, yes, you do. Even if you've never done one, the law has one pre-made for you.
That's it.
So if you don't take the time or make the effort or spend the money,
Government doesn't.
Government got a plan for you. And when you die, that's how your assets and your liabilities will be divided. And the same is true if you don't get a prenup. The law outlines how your assets and liabilities will be divided in your divorce or in your death. So I would say, between you both, it's important to override the law. So to answer your question, what are some of the things you can do outside of a prenup? One is you can leave it to the law. There are some protections in place for you. But most people I find don't like the way the law
straight on that. When you say leave it to the law, that's in the chill.
Leave it to the government to figure out how your personal assets will be divided. But the second thing next, I'm with you. The other thing would be to do estate planning, to figure out your will and or your trust. Write down, and again, this is another scenario in which you are having to contemplate and write down ahead of time in times of calm, peace times, what you want to happen when things go awry. So the thing, though, to consider with a trust, because you mentioned putting your assets in trust and not commingling. So that is accurate. Only thing is there is a limitation. Once you are married, there are certain things that cannot just be put in trust, and I should say a certain thing, your marital home.
Right.
But get this. If you owned a home prior to the marriage, so say you are the man and you have $1 million home that you owned before the marriage, you put it in a trust and it's only in your name and all that good stuff. The moment you get married, she's entitled to a part of that home.
Is it because it's a house? Because it's a home?
Because it's your homestead.
Marital.
The law is different when it comes to homestead. So if you have 10 other properties that you use for investment and you rent them out or whatever, and those are in the trust, then she can't touch those. She has no access to
But
those.
whichever is your primary.
Your primary place of residence. So if she moves in, you get
So
married.
what if you sell the house and rent?
If you sell the house, then
And put the money in the trust instead of the house.
then you're safe.
So they're ways
You will
to get
sell the house, Bishop? Seriously? Lord of mercy.
I'm just helping somebody out there.
Henry said
You had a loophole. He was like, wait, hold on, wait a minute.
just gotta
What if
sell
we
the house.
There's a
ain't
way,
getting none of
brothers
it.
and sisters.
Where there's a will,
there's a way.
She's showing up and he already got bags packed and furniture put up. We don't live here no more.
And the reason why I asked the question is because a lot of people, I'm finding out, because they don't know the law.
Yeah.
And they get the law being interpreted to them by some rookie.
Right.
Auntie, cousin,
Yeah.
everybody out there.
Or in pop culture, in the
Pop
media.
culture, or what they
see,
saw
yeah.
in somebody else's
Which is not
divorce.
relevant to theirs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for those people out there who, you're not married yet and you do have asset,
Yeah.
you got to really think that there are ways to protect.
Yeah.
And that's why you need a family or estate attorney, somebody like Attorney Otto, to really talk to. And especially, there's a lot of brothers out there. They're doing well in life.
Yeah.
Where are they, Bishop? I'm just kidding.
Lord help these people. I'm telling you, see, we brothers are
shade, no
really
shade.
getting it bad.
Where they at?
I see, our Lord Jesus.
Put your name and credit score in the comments for Carlene, please.
And number of baseball cards.
Oh my God.
Name,
lot of
credit
people
score,
out
baseball
there,
cards in the comments.
Male or female, you've worked hard and you've got all these assets, and especially people of faith.
Right.
You're a Christian.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing more than trying to serve God and the struggle. The enemy attack you so often, to even be firm on your faith journey. And the last thing you want is in your serving God and your pursuit of love that you end up with the wrong person or maybe the right person, but they're broken, fragile,
Yeah.
and you didn't set yourself up right.
Right.
Because then that's going to be double problem for you. Not only the devil is fighting you,
Right.
but now you have a situation where you've worked, your life and you end up marrying someone only to find out it didn't work,
Right.
or they die,
Right.
and you've lost all of that. You know, and I don't think any one of us want to end up like that. And I know this is a very edgy, touchy subject for a lot of people out there. That's why I call all of you my real ones, because you understand how we roll. You know, on Sunday I'll preach you faith, whatever, but on Monday I keep it real. You know, what will really damage your life is if you try to sugarcoat your faith walk and thinking, oh, you got it all together, when you don't. These are some basic things you need to know. You need to know that we're living in a time now, and as Attorney Otto clearly stated it, that getting a prenup, thinking about a prenup, is nothing negative. It is not just if you end up getting a divorce. No one is planning for you to get a divorce. But the reality is somebody's going to die.
That's right.
And I'm thinking, I've never heard anybody
Never.
attach prenup to death. Never in my entire life of hearing of prenup. So this podcast alone, to me, is educational. It has given you enough tools now to walk away from today's conversation, though you may disagree with a lot of stuff that some of us have said. Maybe you thought maybe they need to revoke my license now as a preacher of the gospel. You know, but I got 2 boys. And funny enough, I've had this conversation with my boys. And I've told them, when I met your mama, she didn't have nothing. I didn't have anything. And this is what I tell them. I said, now, I'm not leaving you all my money. I'm going to spend my money. You're going to get what I didn't get to spend. No, seriously, that's what I told them. I said, you're going to get, yes, Jamaican said dead left. That's what you're going to get, you know.
Yeah.
But what I told them is that they will be in a better position than I was.
Right.
So they're going to walk into a relationship with some stuff. And I pray that they get the right woman. I pray.
Yeah.
But I oftentimes say to them, I would turn in my grave if they let another person rob them of what their parents left them.
Yeah.
I don't care. You want to sugarcoat that all you want. I will get up out of my grave. I'll tell Jesus I'm coming back. You know, and I've come down to earth. I'm going to fix somebody.
Henry, I think that is a great point that I have never thought of. I've only ever thought of prenuptial agreements and all of that we've talked about here in relation to myself.
No,
Right.
no. It's generational.
It's generational.
But
Generational.
had I, you know, my boy is little, but when you say that now, I'm like,
Talk
whoa,
to you. Yeah,
hold on
talk
a second.
to, you have to talk to your children
Yes.
because you may be smart as an adult.
That's right.
But remember, again, here's the death. You're going to die.
You are.
Everybody is going to die. So the point is your legacy, your wealth is going to be transferred to your children.
Right.
Now, if you don't teach them to be wise, remember there are wolves out there. There are people who are not genuine. So a woman may come into your son's life or a man may come into your daughter's life, and if they don't protect what you have handed over to them, then that perpetual cycle, if you will, of poverty
Yep.
will linger into that family.
Yeah, that's
so the whole discussion today was to stir your thinking. Hopefully you walked away with something, and you're becoming a part of the real ones here on the podcast. So let me know your thoughts. I want to thank Attorney Yanique Otto. Did an
My
excellent
pleasure.
job.
Thank you for having
And
me.
like I said, if we stirred you up, you need somebody to talk to, she's the perfect person to talk to, or anybody of your choosing. And I hope that you will send us your comments, let us know what you're thinking. This is the whole purpose of my podcast. You know, my podcast is not a preaching platform to preach like Sundays and so forth. Sunday has its time, but to get real with people. I'm not targeting just believers. My goal is not just to talk to Christians. You know, I'm like Jesus. I'm going after the unchurched, right? And I want to let them know that there are godly ways to approach life, right? And just because you get married don't mean you're going to be happy. right? And just because you get married now, some of you are sweetly saved, you're nice, but you may end up marrying the devil. And what do you do when you end up marrying the devil? How can we protect you from marrying the devil? And if in case, it's insurance. You may not know, but just in case,
right.
you are protected.
That's right.
That's all it is, right? So thanks again, guys. I think it was a very great conversation. I'll see you next time on the podcast. And I'm going to have a prenup. I tell you what. I'm going to have a prenup.
There's
for them
also a
boys.
post-nup.
Yeah.
So we could talk about that, Bishop.
Post-nup.
If you need one.
Okay, all right, post-nup. Whatever that
kidding.
post-nup, I don't know what that is. I got to talk to my boys. Bye, you all.